It's tempting, isn't it, when considering the case of Israel, to speak only in the language of rights, morality and humanitarian law, but there's a harder, more prosaic truth that must be said plainly. Israel cannot fight its wars without the scaffolding of the international system. Strip away the supply chains, the weapons trade, with the AI-powered satellite targeting systems and the cloud infrastructure hosted by some of the largest corporations in the West, and Israel's military machine would slow, if not stall. It's not a matter of speculation, it's documented in trade figures and corporate disclosures. In 2024, Israel exported $14.8 billion in arms, much of it advertised as battle-tested in Gaza and the West Bank. The irony is too grim to bear. The very violence that international law should restrain becomes a marketing pitch. And at the same time, Israel imports the technologies, the components, and the political cover that allow this cycle to continue. Netanyahu likes to project the image of a besieged fortress state relying only on the bravery of its soldiers and the ingenuity of its people, but the reality is less heroic and far more interdependent. The United States and Germany supplied billions in military aid and advanced weapons systems. Europe buys Israeli missile systems at record rates, in part because of the war in Ukraine. Big tech giants, Amazon, Google and Microsoft, host Israeli military and intelligence data, run AI analytics, and provide cloud services even as those systems are deployed in operations widely alleged to violate human rights. Israel is no more an island than Prussia was in Bismarck's day. It exists in and depends on a web of trade, diplomacy and technology flows. Its defiance of that same order is not the act of a plucky outcast. It is the calculated gamble of a state convinced that others need it too much to impose real costs. The Council of Europe has now urged all 46 of its member states to halt arms sales to Israel where there is a risk that they could be used in Gaza. Chancellor Merz's decision to partially suspend such sales was one of the few tangible policy shifts in a sea of rhetorical condemnation. Yet even here, Berlin simultaneously signed a $260 million missile defense deal with Elbit Systems. That is not moral courage, it's moral compartmentalization. And there's a dangerous temptation to treat arms embargoes as symbolic gestures, as if their main function is to signal disapproval rather than to actually constrain capacity. But symbolism without substance is complicity dressed up as conscience. And Israel's military-industrial complex is not merely a tool of state policy, it's an export brand from India to Europe to the Gulf monarchies. Battle-tested drones, missiles and AI surveillance systems are sold as proven solutions. This is why the war in Gaza is not just a humanitarian catastrophe, but an economic opportunity for those invested in the Israeli defense sector. The logic is chillingly simple. If repression works in Gaza, it works anywhere. That is why autocracies and democracies alike are studying, buying and adapting the Israeli model, an ethno-nationalist security state powered by cutting-edge surveillance and lethal precision. And it's sometimes argued that to restrict Israel's military capacity is to betray its people. In fact, the opposite may be true. A nation used to ruling by force loses its diplomatic instincts, its capacity for compromise, its moral bearings. Prolonging the war not only deepens Palestinian suffering, but also entrenches Israel in a permanent state of siege, one that corrodes its society from within. The international community's duty is not only to Palestinians but also to Israelis, to prevent their state from making itself permanently dependent on endless war and occupation. If there is to be a political horizon at all, it must involve recognition of Palestine as a sovereign entity. That recognition must come with clear, enforceable conditions. 1. Hamas and other terrorist organizations cannot hold government power unless and until they renounce violence and disarm. 2. A demilitarized Palestinian Authority must have genuine capacity to govern and to protect its citizens. This isn't an anti-Israeli position, it's a pro-humanity position. It's an insistence that both peoples deserve a future not defined by siege walls, checkpoints, and the perpetual logic of reprisal. The dithering over whether to halt arms sales is not an intellectual parlour game. It's not a philosophical flourish. Every day of delay translates into more civilian death, more displacement, more radicalization. If the global community will not act now, then when? And the last hospital is destroyed after that? After Gaza is reduced to rubble, after that? We know the mechanisms that work. Suspend the transfer of all weapons and military components to Israel that could be used in offensive operations. Ban the export of AI systems, satellite imagery, and cloud services directly linked to military targeting. Enforce accountability through the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. This isn't about singling out Israel, it's about applying the very standards we claim are universal to all without exception. Israel's war machine runs on the fuel of global complicity. The weapons, the data, the diplomatic cover, all of it is sourced from a network of states and corporations who prefer stability in their contracts to justice in the world. If Israel will not end this war, then the international order that restrains it and that sustains it must end it. For the good of the Israeli people, for the dignity of the Palestinian people, and for the credibility of the principles we profess, we must act now, with more than words, with more than gestures, with a closing of that international arms tap. Recognition of Palestine, exclusion of terrorist governance, and the end of the arms pipeline are not radical demands, they are the minimum required to stop a war that has already gone on far too long.